What is going on, everyone? My name is Under the Radar, and welcome back to the Draft League Viabilities. Now, this week I have a pair that's very not common in league format, and I think that it could be a really cool combination if it's used properly because they synergize really well together, and they're two mons that I think just have cool. Yeah, you know what I'm talking about. They have a cool vibe about them. So I'm actually really excited to be bringing this week's videos to you. And if you guys are excited for it, make sure you leave a like if you like the video, and make sure to leave your opinion down below in the comment section. I love the interaction that I have on this series. It always makes me happy to record this series. But with all that being said, let's just go ahead and talk about the mon of today's video, and that is in fact Liepard. Now, Liepard was requested by Evelyn. It is, I would assume, it's one of her all-time favorite Pokemon. She always says how amazing it is. And if I'm being 100% honest, I didn't really see why she was so fascinated with this Pokemon. A, because it's a cat, and cats fucking suck. Like, I'm highly allergic to them, which has nothing to do with the viability of this thing, but I would never draft it just because it's a fucking cat, and fuck cats. But this mon actually has some really cool things that can really help out a team that I didn't really notice it had until I actually started looking into the mon and looking up what it could actually do. So this mon is, I like to call these mons support mons, even though they could be so much more than just support mons. This mon has access to some amazing moves that can change an entire game. For example, it has U-turn first off, which is absolutely amazing in draft format. If you have done anything, you know that Volt Switch and U-turn are two of the best moves that you can ever have in draft league, except for knockoff, which is also amazing, which this thing also gets. And it can help you gain momentum. It's decently fast. Base 106 speed is actually really unique because while you don't outspeed the likes of Infernape and things like that, you outspeed things like Garchomp and base 100s and the weird base like 101s like Thundee T, and you also outspeed things like Mienshao by 1 point, and that's always really cool whenever you have something that can outspeed just by 1 point. It forces opponents to like rethink their entire strategy just by having something outspeed by 1 point. This mon also has a weird offensive prowess behind it. I don't think it's very good offensively, honestly. But that's personally my opinion, because when I like offense, I like wall breakers. I like Diggersby, I like Azumarill, I like Garchomp. I like things that have like over base 120 attack. Well, Azumarill has base. You know what I'm talking about with abilities and whatnot. I like having things that are like stupid strong and can break through walls, like Hoopa Unbound, Hoopa Confined, things of that nature. I don't really like chip damage offensive mons. It's just not my cup of tea for the most part. So having this thing's kind of sort of, I want to call them mediocre offensive stats, even though 80s isn't that bad. It's not something I would really like to use. But whenever you look into this thing's moveset and its ability, it's not meant to be offensive. It's meant to be a team support. This is meant to stop sweepers, paralyze things, U-turn out, gain you momentum, and really support other members on your team. And I think that's the thing that kind of sort of surprised me the most, is how well this thing can support a team. If you are running this thing and you're about to be swept by a Swords Dance Charizard, you can Thunder Wave it and then you're going to outspeed it. Dragon Dance, you can Thunder Wave that and it prevents it from boosting its speed up too much. If you want to run Belly Drum, you can Encore it into things like that. This thing can really stop things from sweeping. Calm Mind sweepers, they're not as difficult to deal with now because you can Encore them into Calm Mind and then beat them 1v1 because they're forced to Calm Mind up over and over again, being able to knock off their leftovers. It's just very good at stopping sweeps. There are also these things that go around in draft format that are just there. And by that I mean Chansey, I mean Blissey, I mean like regular Sableye, not Mega Sableye, just regular Sableye, things like that are just taunt bait, like 110% taunt bait. And I realize that people said that I drafted taunt bait this season, but I've used it to where it's not taunt bait. But things like Chansey and Blissey, they're taunt bait. No matter what you do to it, they're always taunt bait. This thing can taunt them, force them to go for attacking moves, and allow you to set up with things like a sub Tailglow Manaphy, a sub Swords Dance Garchomp, things of that nature, and it can really allow you to gain momentum on their walls, and that's something that's actually really hard to do in some instances because some people do have really good offense to go with walls. This mon overall, in my opinion, isn't very deep to cover. It's a utility mon, and that's really all it's good for. And it's a utility mon that doesn't get access to stealth rocks or defog. It's a utility mon to support your team to not get swept or to sweep, depending on what you want to taunt or encore. So I think that's mainly what this thing is there for. And honestly, I think this thing is actually really cool to try and use or incorporate into a draft just because of the abilities it has. My downfall with it is the fact that it is so stupid frail. If I was going to draft a prankster user that was meant to stop sweeps or to get chip damage or things like that, I would go with something that's a little bit more bulky. I would go with Whimsicott, because Whimsicott can basically do the exact same thing. It can stun spore, it can tailwind, it can U-turn, it can encore, it can do subseed, it can taunt, it can do all this other cool stuff. It can U-turn, it can just do so much that I think Liepard can't, because it is a little bit bulkier. It can run defensive sets, it can run all this cool stuff. It gets access to more moves, doesn't get access to knockoff, but it gets access to the likes of Moonblast and Giga Drain. So for talking about Liepard, I wouldn't pick it, because I think there are better ones out there. However, for a very low tier, and especially in a price budgeted league, a tier based league, it could be a really good steal for late rounds, because if you have something like a Mega Charizard X where you want to Dragon Dance up and sweep, a Salamence, any really good setup sweeper, this thing could really support that. This could also be a very good support user for just offensive wall breakers that are somewhat slow. And I think that's where I think this thing strives the best. I think in Thunderwave, the things that are faster than it can U-turn out, drop in this massive wall breaker, and then you can play the what's your switching game. And I think that's really cool for this mon. Another somewhat decent, okay thing about Liepard, I guess you could put into it, is the fact that it does get Nasty Plot. So if your opponent's team is stupid weak to dark, like say they have 4 psychic types, and they're really weak to dark, or they're really weak to knockoff. Well, knockoff doesn't really apply in this instance, but say they're really weak to like the coverage that Liepard can get. My camera is going so out of focus, and I apologize, but say you can set up a Nasty Plot, and you can really hurt an opponent's team. And a lot of people don't really expect that, because when they're planning for a Liepard, they think, okay, I need to be careful to not get taunted, not get encored, not get thunderwaved, not get knocked off, not get U-turned on, things of that nature. And then the second that you're like, oh hey, Nasty Plot, switch into a Dark Pulse, it could be really threatening. And that's something that I think can kind of sort of benefit a little bit more, that the other prankster users can't really do too well, aside from maybe Thundurus. But that's usually like an OUA or a 15 mil or a top tier mon, where this thing is normally like a low tier, low budget. So for the exact same price, or I mean for like somewhat of the exact same thing, it could be pretty decent. I'm not saying it by any means it's better. I'm saying that for a low tier budget and you want something that can be set up, utility, momentum gainer, could be pretty decent for a team. Overall, though, I'm going to say that this thing doesn't really need a whole lot of support on its own, just because it is support. Like, yeah, you need switch-ins for what it's weak for, like fighting and bug, which, you know, things like, I'm just drawing a blank. Things like Mega Scizor, you need switch-ins to that, but realistically, this thing doesn't stay in on them. It switches out, and then it gets a slow Volt Switch or U-turn in, and can knock off a wall or taunt a wall or something like that, or get switched into a wall. So overall, I don't really think this thing needs much support. Just make sure you're not super weak to fighting or bug with this, and I think you should be pretty decent, but you got to remember this thing is stupid frail, so you kind of got to baby it when you're using it. Otherwise, it's going to come in, Thunderwave one thing, and then die, or taunt one thing and then die. So you have to be a little bit careful about that. Overall, though, for a very low tier, decent-ish, somewhat versatile utility mon, I'm going to give it like a C. I want to give it a C- just because I personally dislike it, but I'm going to give it a C because it's not bad for what it is, but it could be pretty cool if the right person uses it. It'll never be it'll stop going out of focus. Sorry, my demon kind of came out of me a little bit. It'll never be like top of the MVP race. It'll never be like down at the bottom because it could grab a surprise kill or here. You know, it could be pretty decent with kills. It'll never be MVP. It's just the way it is in draft format. But I would like to see this thing used a little bit more often. I'd like to see what it can do on a team that is planned with it. Evelyn has been using it pretty decent in my opinion. She uses it for what I've been saying. Like, if she stops sweeps with it, she can use it for her own utility on a team, and I think that's really cool. Sam in D1 has never brought it once because he doesn't need to. He's just that good. But he did draft it, so he sees the potential that's in it. He's just never had to use it because Sam's too good. So yeah, that's basically where I'm going to leave off this video. I told you guys that I'm going to be trying to do these in pairs, so the next month I'm going to be covering goes along with this pretty decently in my opinion, so it'll be really cool to see what you guys think of the pair itself, see how you guys would try to incorporate it on a team and things of that nature. But overall, this mon is not my favorite, but it could be pretty decent. Let me know what you guys think down in the comment section below. Also, I hope Evelyn enjoyed, because I did this mainly for her because she's kind of an awesome person. I really enjoy hearing what she thinks about Pokemon. Honestly, I just do. But with all that being said, I'm going to go ahead and get on out of here. I hope you guys have an absolutely fantastic day, and I will see you guys in the next video. Bye-bye.